Sumner.
Here.
Here.
Deb.
Here.
No Carl and no Paul.
Yeah.
So.
Do we have any citizens' comments? No? Can we have a motion on approval of the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have minutes for both the October 20th and correction of the September 15th meeting. Can we have a motion approving these minutes?
So move.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and now we're to the finance report, and Mr. Sniffer's going to report on the operating budget.
Yep, so I'll have April go over the finance documents that are in your packet, and then we'll go over the proposed budget after that.
So in your packet, we have first the balance sheet. As of October 31st, it was showing a little over $313,000 in the checking, and then in escrow, we are still holding $26,500 for developers that are still in the process of completing their projects. On the back of that page is the profit and loss. So we have so far $300 in developer fee revenue. That's the 25% portion that we get to keep of the developer payments monthly until their projects are completed. We have $4,800 in property tax revenue from the county. We do have pending from the city, also tax, the 50-50 split tax revenue. The sale of property is a little over $250,000, and then in services, we've received over $577,000 for a total gross profit of $832,245.93. And then our net income is $247,389.54. The next paper is the check detail list. It has all of the checks that were cut during October 2025 with a memo or description on there. And then I also have the budget versus actuals for January through October of 25.
What is our property tax revenue from the county?
Do you want to go for it, or you want me to do it?
I can try to take a stab. So the 50-50 tax split is for properties that the land bank had in its possession that we had sold, and they were put back into productive use and were taxable properties again, that we get 50% of the city and county taxes for 5 years from the time that it's sold.
Good, okay.
So it was in the enabling legislation that created land banking. It was the one tool that they gave us as an ability for land banks to generate some revenue. We know it's not a lot, but the more development opportunities and rehabbed housing we put out there, the higher that's going to be. And that was kind of, and we can talk more about that when we get down to the vacant lots and that as far as quiet title. It's kind of why we said we would rather have vacant lots joined with an adjacent parcel, because our 550 tax capture isn't that great on that. We want that 50% of parcels with structures. We'll generate more from that. So.
Yeah, I think what we learned from going up to Detroit was we want to sustain density in this city. You know, we can have basketball courts and gardens all over the place, but that's not how a city functions. And that's what I learned from that. I didn't see where what they had come up with made any economic sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions on that? We want to move into the, do you want to accept the financial statements? And then we can go into the proposed budget?
Can we have a motion accepting the financial report? I'm overworking you two, I apologize.
So moved.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the report of the executive director.
All right, so in front of you is the proposed budget for 2026 for the Erie Land Bank. you have three columns there. We have the 2025 proposed budget, 2025 anticipated, so that's as of the end of October, with giving we have 2 more months, kind of anticipating out what our expenditures will be for the, can't you turn those on remotely? So like I said, 2025 anticipated is up till October, and then whatever we anticipate our revenue and expenditures will be going through December 31st. And then the last column is the 2026 proposed. And so in the top there is anticipated revenue. Going on down through there, we have $27,500 in general fund revenue, $20 in interest income, $35,000 in sales proceeds, and same as, certainly when you look at the middle column there, $208,000, that's highly skewed by Cameron Road, and certainly we hope to have a Cameron Road every year, but, that's yet to be seen. So until we get to the point where we know we have a rehab opportunity like that every year, I'm going to play it safe at $35,000 in revenue, and until that kind of sways. So if you take the 179 out of that 208, it's not quite 35,000. So ELB 550 tax is 4,500, and then we have 100,000 in fair demo site restoration, fair affordable housing, 100 each there. And then going down to the bottom, 7,200 in work plan 24, 87,571 in work plan 25, and then 3,900 or 399,000 in work plan 26. So, and I don't know how you want to go through the expenses. If there's, you want me to hit on a couple of the big ones, but so right now, anticipated as far as payroll expenses, at the end of this year, it's anticipated will be $188,350 in anticipated administrative payroll to the Redevelopment Authority for operation of the Erie Land Bank. We've looked at the time cards and the associated hours going back over 2025 and 2024. We put a lot of hours to the land bank this year. We had a lot of activity, like I said, with Cameron Road and a couple other projects. So I'm dialing that back a little bit next year with an anticipated $170,000 in payroll expenses. We're going to acquire a few less properties than we did, and I think we've streamlined some of our operations there, so a little bit more conservative as far as that goes.
And I want to say, I was highly impressed with the accounting that was provided of that time. I thought that was very carefully done, which I think is important.
Yeah, I think that's something, that the management of multiple state, federal, and local grants has allowed us to do is break out our time, very detailed as far as what staff puts to it, and it helps us when it comes to this tracking. So we can certainly see, where our administrative burdens are and what it is. And so that was kind of, and not to go back up to work plan 26, but, in our meeting last month with the Erie County Land Bank and our request for $500,000, they awarded us $400,000. And certainly they had a question as far as the administration that we put toward those grants. But as I explained to them, land banking is an administratively heavy process. We don't have a lot of large expenditures that offset our admin burden, so.
Yes, that's an important development that I'd like some more information on. That the
400,000?
That we went from 500 to 400. Was their funding cut, or are they spending more in the county bank, or what happened?
So their funding was not cut, and so certainly they have a new executive director, and this is his first year at this point in the game where he gets to set their budget for 2026. The discussion that ensued regarding our ask was that they looked at a lot of our work plans, and certainly we put a lot into environmental abatement, rehabilitation line items that were worked into our work plan. Certainly we asked for $500,000, and we want to have the ability to utilize that however we can. They looked at that, and they wanted more input and say as far as those larger expenditures when it comes to rehabilitation and environmental abatement. So saying that, we have 1014 West 19th Street, which is a old industrial car shop, whatever it's been. We're working on a phase 1 right now. We have the potential for some environmental abatement out there. They want us to come as the land bank and request that funding as a separate ask to them so that they aren't holding that funding for us to not spend it. I know we don't have a problem spending the money. I mean, I think we have enough projects and the ability to find more projects that we can spend the money. I think they just want to know those larger expenditures and have a little bit more say in it. So we took those out of it, and I provided the 2026 work plan broken out as far as where that 400,000 is going. And you'll notice there's no demolition, there's no rehabilitation, and there's no environmental abatement fees in there. So those would be additions that we would ask them for specific requests for those major activities.
And their funding is $1 million a year?
Their funding is $1 million in gaming revenue allocation from Erie County, yes.
Okay, so they initially were very fair to us to give us half those funds, even though the city's only maybe a third of the population. In recognition, we've got a lot of the older housing.
Yeah.
But probably our cash balance didn't help us there either, right? We've got a significant cash balance.
No, that didn't play into it. And so when you look back at the years, the last 7 years, early on, the Erie Land Bank got, I think the first year, and I should have brought it, like 460,000. But year one, there was no Act 152 program. There was no demolition fund for us to lean on. So that large number initially was skewed by a large amount of demolition expenses. Then you go into year two and it drops to $200,000. In year three, it goes somewhere around $300,000. And then I think in year four was the first year we were awarded $500,000. Then the year after, they awarded us $250,000 because of the Mill Creek General Authority project on 8th and Peninsula. And then last year we got $500,000. And so then of course this year's ask was for $500 and they awarded $400.
Okay, so the 500 last year was
It was, yeah.
quite an improvement, yes.
Yes, yeah. So
It's just awkward that we're totally dependent. We have some other minor sources, but that is pretty much what keeps us going is what we get from the county. And the fact that they cut us back, your explanation there is we had done very well last year, so it's not like we're on their hit list or something.
Right, no,
To go
we-
from 500 to 400, 400 is still bigger than what we have generally received.
Right,
over this.
I would agree with you. I think when you look at the Erie County Land Bank activity, the work of the Erie Land Bank and the funding they provide to it is a large amount of their success. You know, when you look at the funding that they spend, they certainly understand, and I think the board knows Erie has a lot of problems and certainly they need to support that. I just think right now they're looking at what they want to do with their funding. Now, again, that's their decision and they have their own operating budget and fund balances and everything that they're dealing with. You know, so I advocate the best I can for 500,000, you know, and ultimately I'm at the mercy of what their board feels. They always advocate to the fact that, you know, they need to support the city of Erie. You know, granted, I would want 500,000 every year or 600,000, you know, but because I certainly know we could spend it. But again, you know, we put forth the ask and that's what they award us, so.
Carl, you arrived at a good time because we're talking about the county allocation being reduced from 500,000 to 400,000. And Aaron went over the history of that, and 400,000 is still a good amount. But do you have any feedback on that?
No, I know that last year you were able to get more,
500.
more than the allocation that they're giving this year. And I think they have, other plans that they're setting money aside for and just look at it on a year-to-year basis. Probably with changing administrations, they're being a little more conservative and
Are they trying to accumulate some money for the Mill Creek project, you think?
well, yeah, I'm not sure, but I know that, unfortunately for the city, who is using their allocation on a yearly basis and can always use more, that the county has been stockpiling the money. And I think they have 2.8 million or something like that.
Yeah, they have a generous fund balance.
Okay. In your budget, Do you allow for a possible rehab like was done last year? I thought that was such an important success for the land bank.
Right, so in our 2026 proposed budget is $145,000 in rehabilitation. Now, that number reflects a couple different things. The affordable housing fair grant that's outlined above, $96,000 in that is toward the rehabilitation or subsidy to the development of a new development, single-family property. And then when you look at demolition, that $87,000 is associated with the fair demolition site restoration grant. So there's some money in there. There's not a lot. There's about $50,000 for rehabilitation. It's more for a modest rehabilitation. I did not put that high because, like I said, if we identify a property, I would prefer to put together our rehabilitation scope for that property, get an anticipated budget, and take that back to the Erie County Land Bank and get them to support the rehabilitation of that property individually by itself.
At one of our recent meetings, you mentioned that you thought we would have to do work on a prevailing wage basis. Was that what was done on Cameron
Yes.
Street? That was on a prevailing wage basis? Okay.
Yeah, any dollar spent, public or private, out of the Erie Land Bank is governed by the Pennsylvania Prevailing Wage Act.
And the reason I ask this, you have one on your buy list that looks to me like a good potential rehab, and that would be this brick 3-bedroom flat at 813 East 23rd Street.
That was part of my judicial tax sale list. That one has been paid and removed from the sale.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, no, I would agree with you. And Kyle did
I like that
a
one.
decent, a really good job of putting together this list of potentials. And so we do have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 or 6 out of the judicial tax sale acquisitions that Kyle proposes are potential rehabilitation opportunities, whether those rise to the level of the land bank facilitating that or development proposals. 6 out of 19 is fairly decent compared to what we had in the past. So
Now is that property at 813 East 23rd, is that on the blight list?
that is not on the blight list. Nope, it was just on the tax sale list.
But it was unoccupied, I think, right? Or is
It was unoccupied, yes.
But it's
Yeah.
off the list, so. Yeah.
Water was inactive, electric service was inactive, and it was unoccupied. Now, that doesn't, I mean, for whatever reason, it could be an out-of-town asset company, it could be somebody in town that's just finally getting around to rehabilitating it. We don't have much information beyond that. So, and whether or not was on the blight list or that, yeah, I'd have to question code enforcement as far as their action on that. I'm not quite sure of its condition, but. But so getting back to the 400 allocation and then, the County Land Bank Board saying, certainly we can come to them for rehabilitation, we can come to them for environmental abatement, but also if the land bank identifies maybe a specific property off the blighted property list that we would like to file condemnation on, or maybe we want to focus on an area where there's a high density of blight and we have more acquisitions that we would like to go after, that is something too that they said that they would entertain as far as an ask from the Land Bank Board. So they kind of accepted the ability to pull off 20 off the judicial tax sale list and 4 blighted properties, but did leave it open to the fact that we can go back for more if we so desire and we feel there's a need, or again, a specific project that we want to focus on.
So the tax sale acquisition, you have 100,000 here proposed for 2026?
Yes. So that includes the tax sale cost, which this year the minimum bid went up $1,000. So it's $2,000 minimum bid plus $188 in fees. So we will be providing checks for $2,188 to the Tax Claim Bureau. So 19 properties right now at that cost. All of Gene's legal fees associated with title search and all of the process of getting the deeds and all those for those properties. And then the follow-up title action on those properties so that we can convey those. So
which we'll go over quiet title later on in the agenda. And then just right there is as far as condemnation acquisition, $60,000. We spent 106 last year. I think we had some residual properties come over from 2024 into 2025. That kind of offsets that $40,000 difference there. But in only acquiring 4 properties, that $60,000 should fairly cover it, as long as there's not a large legal bill associated with it if somebody challenges or fights our condemnation action against those properties. So shouldn't happen, but it's never outside the possibility, as Gene and I are both aware. So what other big ones? Trash removal and clean out, $50,000. We spent a lot more than budgeted so far in 2025. That is highly related to the fact that we hired a realtor. Their recommendation was they sell better if we clean them out. It costs us about $6,000 to empty the belongings from a single-family residential structure on average. Now, I think Kyle's had as high as, I think, almost $9,000 on a clean out. That was more of a hoarder situation, but it does net us more on the resale side of it. So
Yeah, I think the proof of that was selling that one up on East Avenue, which I went through, the 2700 block. I mean, that was all marked up inside and such, but at least it was emptied out and there was activity on it. So I think that is, I agree with you, that's money well spent.
yeah, no, it's definitely worth it. And I think we'll see that return.
I see it's on the market and 160 some, and that's a great result. And they're starting to deck at 6 in Vermont. They're starting to deck the foundations in, and they're decking it. And these are just great positives for the community, particularly the one being on West 6th Street. To show new construction in the city is great. And that East Avenue one, they did a nice job on it. They had a nice tour online that you could look at, and Mr. Sharif on the school board lives down the street, and he's thinking they're asking too much for it, but they're trying, but they got it done quite quickly.
Yeah, no, and it came out good, and I was going to put a presentation together for the board for next month.
Yeah.
But, it's.
And you didn't have to do it, which is nice, yeah.
No, so, and it's certainly, we've seen the willingness of individuals in the city to rehabilitate properties. And I think we did a good job as the land bank last year, doing our due diligence to revise some of our policies and procedures. And so certainly the first one, 2712, working with that developer was a learning curve for both of us. And so we worked out some of our kinks internally and our documentation of it. But I think we got to the outcome we wanted faster because we had more involvement in it and there was more strings connected. So, we had plenty of developer proposals over the years, but now we're seeing these actually moving along. 320 Plum Street, I think we're waiting on a furnace permit and a couple other things, and that 2-unit will be rehabilitated. And there's, I think, 1316 Buffalo Road's moving along. So these recent development proposals have a little bit more teeth and a little bit more incentive for them to get them rehabilitated, and we're seeing the results of that with the work getting done faster. So.
The only thing I would add to that is, as far as after they put the offer in, offer gets accepted and they sign all the documentation, maybe a little more verbiage or clarification on what permits need pulled for what. Because I know a lot of these developers are very confused on.
Well, I think that's a whole other side of it. And so we don't want to, as the land bank or even the redevelopment authority, to provide what is required. Certainly, we leave that on to the Bureau of Code Enforcement and their education toward contractors in the city of Erie. Everybody who does work in the city of Erie should be aware of what permits are required. And so, certainly I think our documentation says all required permits, and we could certainly provide a list of that, but there's essentially 4 building permits that would be for any rehabilitation project. But I think to that point, I think that goes to code enforcement and an education piece on required permits. And we know, we see it on the Blighted Property Review Committee a lot of times when we get an individual who comes for a blight rescind. They call Kyle out, Kyle and Jake from code enforcement go out there and they didn't pull any permits. And it's because if the city's not involved, there's no requirement for a permit to be pulled. So they just get in that habit, and then all of a sudden the city's involved and we have the ability to make sure permits were pulled. So there's just that kind of enforcement level we have there. So it's unfortunate, but it's things that need worked. So.
Any more questions for the executive director? Okay, we'll move on to the solicitor's report.
Do you want to accept the proposed budget, or can we have?
Yeah. Do we have a motion on the budget?
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask for clarification? Have you adjusted the budget based on the numbers?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's as adjusted or it's already adjusted?
It's already adjusted based upon the
Okay.
award of 400.
All right.
So this budget reflects the second page, which is the work plan 26, and what would potentially be already in the hopper as far as active projects.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We approve the budget.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the solicitor's report.
Good afternoon, Board. It's nice to be here again today. You will see my memorandum or my outline or itemization with regard to a number of matters, the first being the signed sales agreements. These are agreements that are under contract. We are working to make sure that real estate taxes have been set, that we're checking on water and sewer balances and the like before we actually get to closing, to make sure that everything is paid up and that free and clear title is in fact being transferred. We have found a number of times where, again, and I may have mentioned it before, but the water at Erie Waterworks hasn't entered a judgment, but when you call to set up the closing and to get any balance, all of a sudden now there's $2,000 or even $3,000 past due municipal bill that isn't a judgment. And now, so we're learning throughout the process is to double check beforehand. I'm doing the title searches and there's no lien, but then when you call them for a final water reading, oh, by the way, it's $2,000. So we're working through some of those.
Because they would, even if they're not of record, I assume they still have that priority?
They do.
Yeah.
And they've attached, they're a part of the land, and now all of a sudden, we've just sold something for $500.
Base.
That's now $2,000 or $3,000. So we're working through that process. So we're making sure that we've covered all those bases. So you'll see this list coming down.
Do they play a game on that? I know the banks, if an account is dormant, all of a sudden the service fees start going up. So somebody is always trying to scheme. So if somebody's water is turned off, do they accelerate the fees after that? Or
Well, even after they turn the
we
water
owe them
on.
interest. We owe them interest, but are they charging service fees as well? I mean,
I don't know that they are, but they
I
have.
would look at their breakout
Yes,
on those,
and I've
'cause
and I've
that's what
asked
the
them.
bankers do.
Right, and thankfully, I have a really good relationship with the solicitor for Erie Waterworks, so we're working together to address all those situations, because all of a sudden, there's a $2,000 surprise.
Yeah.
Well, we can't sell a property for $500 or $2,000, and then all of a sudden, there's another $2,000. So we're working through all of that process. We're in a good place. We're headed in the right direction. But what the board needs to know is that, again, why we're here is to get these properties back onto the real estate rolls, and that's what we're doing. So those are the properties that are in the works here.
Now, you have quite a few there. There's 10. Are any of them of interest, or are they all just going to adjoining owners? Are any of them potential rehabs, or?
Aaron, I don't know that, none of those jump out
No.
as,
No, none of those are rehabilitation opportunities. They're all side lot properties.
but again, I want to make sure that with the side lot sale, that there isn't extra baggage along with it that are of a huge financial impact upon us as the seller before we can convey it to the adjoining property owner. With that, I've also listed again, the pending quiet title actions. And the local court now knows what I'm doing and what we're doing and are working with us. The timing takes a little bit longer than I thought and anticipated. You'll see that some of these are being scheduled out pretty far. And also what is important for the board to know is, for example, I was in front of Judge Ridge. He signed the judgment order on December 1st, but on November 1st, but then I can't enter that final judgment for 30 days. So we're giving these property owners a significant amount of time to raise any issues so that when I enter that final order on December 1st, there's no chance that anybody's coming to reopen the can of worms. So the courts are now aware that even though they grant my order at these hearings, they're all confirming, Gene, my understanding is you wait 30 days before you file that. I go, yes, that's correct, Your Honor. So is it slow and labor intensive? Yeah, a little bit. But I want to make sure that we've cleared everything up. You'll see in bold, and this is when I send the memos to the court as to what we're doing. I'm still educating them, and I guess it's important for the board to affirm, we've talked about this a number of times, is again, we're doing the belt and suspenders approach when we're taking them from tax sale, is that we do go through that quiet title action to put the title insurance companies at ease so that if it's sold or if it's adjoined to a property owner who has a house next door with a mortgage on it, that they know that it's free and clear and that the title is good. So that language is an explanation mostly for the court to understand, Gene, why are you coming back in here? You've already taken this at tax sale. Why are you doing this again? Well, it's because the title companies, and we want to make sure that the property owner is at ease, that I'm not encumbering his property if he joins that adjacent lot to his home. As the chairman said, it's exciting every morning and evening to see Steve Lewis and his crew out there working. They had a big delivery the end of last week, all the decking and such, and I'm hoping that the weather holds off a little bit longer for them because the neighborhood's really abuzz about it, and I think that they're really going to be excited when they see the shell going up. On two really important notes, and I want to thank again Aaron and his entire group. 2606 Jackson Avenue, that certificate of completion is completely done. Signed, sealed, delivered. Likewise on 2712 East Avenue, the certificate of completion, these folks have again worked with everybody within Aaron's crew to do the rehabilitation and to issue the certificate of completion and the full conveyance to them.
Jackson, that was this year as well, wasn't it? Or
No,
was that
so
earlier?
That's what I was going to say. So right
That
there,
was-
you see two different properties, and
2021.
one showcasing the revised policies of the Erie Land Bank and how quickly the rehabilitation happened. 2606 Jackson was in 2021,
Oh.
and East Avenue was in June of 2025. So certainly our attention to those revisions has made development a little bit faster.
So again, Aaron and his group, Kyle and the whole team, quite frankly, paying attention, being diligent on these, they're holding the feet to the fire to get them done, because as you can see, that even the developers were letting it languish from 2021. But now, hey, look, we want this done. We need to get it done so that you can get it back and get it back fully on the tax roll so that we can continue to help our city.
Has anything happened on two others that we approved earlier? One was Angela Allen. was going to buy something, and there was a fellow, these were a few months ago, they were going to rehab some properties.
You have to need addresses. names
Okay,
escape
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
The address is more like, I know
Talking
there's
about
a few
German
more.
Street? Talking about German
some-
Street.
So yes, so there are some right now that are kind of on hold.
Okay.
We've pulled all of our properties with structures off of the MLS and that because we ran into some title issues. And so we're letting Gene and his team work through those title issues because we don't want to enter into a sales agreement and then have that sit and go, stagnant while we're waiting on the cleaning title. So we have, I think, 3 or 4 structures right now that we've boarded and sealed for the winter months and waiting until Gene gives us the all clear, and then we're gonna move forward with the sale of those. So we've noted, anybody we have a sales agreement with, we've notified that at this point, we're on hold. If they, want something, or have some access to get in there to evaluate the property in the meantime, we're open to that, but we can't transfer ownership at the current time. We just wanna clear our title issues before we move forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, 908 East 26th Street, we did vote and agreed to sell that, and the owner still hasn't been able to take possession.
Yep.
Because of title issues
Yep.
involved.
Yeah.
And here's what I'm running into, and we've been able to streamline it of recent within the past 30 to 60 days. A lot of times, if it was part of an estate, what I was doing was putting together an entire return, an estate return. Having a number of telephone calls with the Department of Revenue in Harrisburg, they've shown me that you can put together a letter almost of explanation with the appropriate documentation, and they'll do a release of lien. Would they love for me to do a full tax return? Yeah, but I don't want to do that. That's too much time, too much effort. If you need a letter of explanation with all the right attachments together, and you'll provide me with a release of lien, that's how we're going about these, as Dan indicated, to expedite these. Because we have buyers who are anxious and waiting
Yeah.
to get to get it into their hands, and I want to do that.
I just have a random question on that as well. Say January gets here and we still can't convey a free and clear title. Are they able to walk away, or are they?
They would, yes.
Yeah, we're not holding anybody to anything.
We wouldn't
Okay.
do that.
Yeah, and to add, and Gene, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 3 years ago is when the state said that the judicial tax sale can no longer waive inheritance tax.
That's
So, and
correct.
that's what's kind of made it more difficult for Gene and them to take care of that inheritance tax because the state wants them to go through the hoops to clear it, so.
And they want confirmation that if they're owed any money, they don't care who they get it from. If they're owed money and they can get it, they want it. So it's been, the past number of years has been a little bit more difficult, but we're finding ways to help expedite the process.
And is the inheritance tax based on the purchase price from the tax sale?
It is based upon the assessed value of the property at the time that the person passed away. So at the time that they passed away, there may have been a house there that's now been demolished. It's just a lot. The state doesn't care. And the house may not have been worth anything near what it was assessed at. They didn't, the parents passed away, the kids just disappeared. They didn't want anything to do with it. Well, it was assessed at $185,000 for the lot and the house. It wasn't habitable. And it was so bad, we've now bulldozed it. We may owe inheritance tax on the assessed value when the last spouse passed away, which is really not fair.
Well, that's a starting point, right?
Yes.
You have arguments, and of course, you can check and see if there were liens of record.
Right. So, and
It's
when
the
I
net
can.
equi- It's the net equity in the
Right.
house that's
So if I can educate them as to the history and what the situation is, and the appraisals that's done that was zero, and hey, we had to bulldoze it, and here's the fees associated with with raising it, that all helps me to convince the Department of Revenue, there's no money here to collect. And they go, okay, we'll release it. We'll release that potential lien.
So we've taken everything off the market to make sure we have all these titles clear. Yeah,
for the time being.
Yeah.
We
That's
want to
important.
know that when we sign that sales agreement,
Yes,
it
that
can
we-
go and that'd be expedited as quickly as possible. We don't want to hold the developer up.
Right, right.
We want to make sure they can move as quickly as possible, so.
Right, that's exactly right. And that's only fair. We don't want people to get excited about and allocating funds to start on a project and then go, oh, by the way, Gene's going to be working in the next 4 to 6 months to clear this. That's not fair to them
Yes.
either. So with that, I'm still working.
Any other questions for the solicitor? We'll move on to unfinished business and new business.
So, number one, I would request to pull that one from the agenda, because I would kind of like to really decide on number two, and then go back to this individual and sort out the sale price of this property, so, because we're still working, Mel's got to get back on whether we do need quiet title on 163 Brighton, and if we do, then that's going to cost us more than $500, so. And the proposal is minimum of 500 with an escalation up to 10,000. So they're willing to pay more for the property, and I want to make sure that we cover as much of our land bank costs as possible and have that new structure. I don't think we're going into the fall. His proposal doesn't say he's building a house, so I think we're in good shape to kind of pull that from the agenda for now and come back to it.
So they filled out this proposal in August.
Yes,
Were we just sitting on the proposal?
we were waiting on the demolition to be completed and the site to be restored, yeah.
So do we have anything further on items 2 or 3?
Yeah, no, I can go on to number two if you're.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So this goes back to our board summit and the discussion as far as, one, our increased costs of quiet titles and why that is. And so we kind of, working with Gene and Mel, pulled together a summary of our quiet title for 2025, and that's what's included in your packet today. So we kind of touched on it at the summit. Why do we do quiet title? Because we can't combine a parcel with an adjoining parcel with clouded title. So we have to quiet that title. Also, to the other fact is we can't sell a property with a structure with a title that can have a warranty deed on it unless we quiet the title. So that's where that comes into play. Certainly the properties that sit in our inventory that are vacant lots, we don't have to quiet the title until a point in which we want to do something with it. However, right now our policies and procedures say minimum price of $500 for a side lot. The board's policy is we sell a side lot to an adjoining property owner, we want it combined because history showed there was a high likelihood that the individual purchasing that side lot would not pay the taxes on it, and then that property would end up in a repository. And again, we don't want to see this property back. The point of selling it to a side lot owner was to essentially make it disappear. So in that policy that the board said we want to adjoin all properties, we waived our $550 tax recapture on a vacant lot. But we also freed up that individual to build a garage, an accessory structure, put a fence around it, something that they could not do under city ordinance and code because you can't build a garage in a residential neighborhood on a standalone lot without a house on it. So allowing them to combine it allows that to happen. But again, now we've increased our cost. We now have quiet title at an average of $3,200 per parcel to make that happen. So certainly we're expending more money to make that happen, and they're still only responsible for $500 plus closing costs, which I think is $1,800 roughly on top of the $500. So they're walking out of there with $2,300, and we're eating approximately $2,700 in quiet title legal fees. So kind of what we wanted to put on the table for discussion today was, how do we want to address this? Do we want to amend our policies and procedures for our minimum sale price for side lots? How do we want to do that? what do we want to recoup? You know, is it all of it? Is it a percentage of it? You know, just, yeah, so I'll open it for discussion and questions.
You know, I don't have a problem with going up to like $3,000 at least as a starting point. If somebody wants to add a garage or something, it's going to add value to their home, and $3,000 isn't very much for a piece of property. You know, our funding is limited, and with all the work we're doing clearing title and such,
Yeah, and I think I would have to go back.
we can't subsidize every sale, which is what we've been doing.
Yeah, and I now thinking about it, I'll have to go back, I have to go back and pull like what we have into all these properties because demolition. I mean, certainly we've absorbed roughly about $8,500 per parcel for demolition costs. You know, certainly county paid for that out of Act 152, but ultimately that was public funds that were used to make that happen. So,
Well, that demolition, though, that was a necessity,
right.
but then, you know, clearing the title for them, I don't think he can.
I
Do you think we
personally
should
think
add
it
in the
should-
demolition cost, or?
I don't think we should. But I think it should be a case-by-case decision. If we did not do a quiet title action, I think the $500 is still fair. The acreage of the lot, I think we should take into determination as well. I mean, if it's a half acre versus 0.05, what can they really do with the side lot? And how much more value does that bring to their property? But if we are doing quiet title action, I think maybe a starting point at 3,000 would be fair.
Okay, so if the board does not want to do quiet title on vacant lots, then we would have to forego the requirement that they join the two parcels together, which then takes us back to potential for default on taxes.
Right, and if we're going to continue to require them to merge them, which I think's been a good policy, we can't give them a ticking bomb that all of a sudden they've got this title problem of an unpaid water bill or something on that lot. It wouldn't be fair to them, so.
I think quiet title action is necessary.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes, for what we're requiring them to do, we don't want to expose them on their homes to a lien that they pick up by buying the lot.
Right.
So the way we do that, I think, is raise the price of it and do the quiet titles.
So Dana, to your point, right now the policies and procedures are set in a 3-tier. 500 is the minimum, I think up to 50 foot of frontage. Over 50 foot of frontage, it goes up to a certain dollar per foot over that, and then corner lots are half the assessed value. So certainly corner lots, half the assessed, I think the assessed value on a corner lot is sometimes $7,000, you know, so $3,500 for a minimum for a corner lot. And we've sold corner lots and we don't have a problem selling those to individuals at half
Right.
assessed value. So.
Mr. Chairman. I'd like to remind everybody that the purpose that the land bank was created and the real value and expertise that you bring is to get these properties back on the tax rolls for the community, so the municipality can be bringing in more tax revenue and more tax revenue to the people of the community. At the same time, with having this great opportunity and undertaking to benefit the community, you're stuck and we're stuck as a board with trying to figure out how to pay for it all and make sure that it all works. I would just hate to see us price ourselves out of line with the real intended purpose, which is to get these properties back on the tax rolls. And tax money is subsidizing the land bank to do that. And so I think we certainly don't want to put in any kind of a policy that is going to make it unfair. You know, we have different sections of the city, different sizes of lots. Somebody may in one area be able to put a garage on, in another area they may not. But we still want to get those properties back on the tax roll. Even if we have to do the quiet title in both cases, I think we want to make sure that we're sensitive to having an overall blanket policy that's fair across the board as a tier policy like you guys were suggesting. But I think for us to attempt to recuperate the cost, I think that's going outside of our intended purpose. I think we need to limit the cost as best we can while still achieving the goals of what the creation of the land bank was for to begin with. So I just think we got to look at a policy that we're not a business to the extent of making money to continue to be in business for the standpoint of a profit, but to be in business to ensure that the local municipality is gaining more revenue.
I would suggest that we recoup on an individual basis whatever we spend for quiet title plus $500, so that we are at least getting something based on each of the lots or vacant lots or whatever we may be selling.
And that would have us at 3,000.
I feel like $500 has been more than generous for a piece of land. So I would agree. I think we should.
We're trying to raise values in the city, and this is one way we can do it. Now, if we don't sell any, we can have to look at it again, but
Definitely case by case.
yes.
Basis. If the quiet title was done, then maybe the starting bid could be 3,000. If no quiet title was done, then we can leave the starting bid at 500.
And we can list them on when we get to listing them again, we can list them at 3,000. People can always submit offers less. That happens all the time on real estate
Our
transactions.
easiest sale is for side lots, because we don't list it with the realtor. We just send the side lot letter and someone reaches out and says, I want to buy it. So that's kind of, yeah,
Okay.
I kind of agree. 500, we sell them. We typically get somebody that wants to buy it, and they are aware that they have to pay more in closing costs. It is a burden, and we do eat this, but we also pay $700 a year in mowing expenses to mow every lot. So every year that parcel goes unsold to a side lot owner, we're paying $700 per parcel to mow it. So after 5 years, we've now spent what we were trying to, so that's kind of it. I certainly, we have an expense of $3,200. However, I don't want to burden the fact that the quicker we can sell it, the quicker it gets back on the tax rolls, and one, it's out of our management. We don't have to mow it anymore. We don't have to worry about picking up tires and electronics and couches and mattresses, and those are administrative burdens that we don't calculate on these vacant parcels, that when Kyle's got to go out and take pictures and call Public Works and refuse and have them come pick up a couch, or figure out how we're going to get rid of tires, so those things are, again, the longer they sit in our inventory, the longer we're managing it, the more cost is incurred by the land bank. So that's kind of, it's there. $3,200, $500 they sell. Would I like to get $3,500 for them? Sure. Are we probably going to see a large percentage of them just sit there because the homeowner doesn't have it?
Since I've been on the board, though, I have seen a ton of 500 offers with a price escalation. So
Yes.
I wouldn't say the homeowner doesn't have it. They just luck up and get it for the 500 because your neighbor on the other side offered 500 also.
And you're not wrong. And so I think that a lot, again, it's lot by lot. Different neighborhoods, different neighbors, different situation. There's not one neighborhood in the city of Erie where every lot is 100% the same as far as who lives next to it. So there is a lot of variables. And so setting a policy that's right for every neighborhood and every parcel, it's kind of hard, but it makes it easier for us to say the minimum price is X, you have the ability to have an escalation. So
What has your success rate been at the 500? I assume fairly good?
It's been fairly well. I don't have the data on that offhand. We have determined it's a lot easier for us to get sales before the property is demolished. So once it's in our control, Kyle sends out the side lot letters, and we typically get more proposals than we did waiting until after the property was cleared. I think that's kind of a fact that the residents think, oh, if I'm interested in it, it'll get demolished faster. They're not aware, certainly they've lived next to this property for sometimes 5 to 6 years. And, so their interest in buying it might make it get demolished faster. I don't know, but we've had more success that route than waiting till it was demolished. However, we're changing that policy because of the quiet title action. Now, if we have an interested buyer, now we gotta go quiet title, so it's gonna take longer. So we're kind of navigating that change in process there. But we do have, in some of the more owner-occupied compared to rental percentage areas of town, we do have a very good success rate with selling to side lot owners. Typically, landlords are not our side lot buyers, unfortunately. It's typically owner-occupants that are buying our side lots.
But if somebody resists the new price that we put on it, and if we put the 3,000 on it to try to break even, and they say no, well, our response is, well, we're going to list it for sale. You can still bid on it, but it's going to go up for sale. That's going to be another incentive to that person to buy that lot, because if it sells to somebody else, they've lost that opportunity.
But those are not getting listed with realtors, correct? The side
Yeah,
lots.
well, so I guess I would caution the board with that, because certainly there's well over a few hundred lots on the repository right now across the city of Erie at $250 that nobody's buying. And so, one, we don't want to list it on the open market because we would want a development proposal on that. We're not going to get a development proposal on a 35-foot lot on East 22nd Street. So
Those
Mr.
200,
Chairman.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Say that the $250 lots that are on the repository list potentially would need to go through the quiet title action though, correct?
yes.
Mr. Chairman, what if we took a middle-of-the-road approach, and it seems like the policy that you have in place is working, and it seems to be working rather quickly and alleviating some of these other sideline expenses that could potentially be attached to each of these properties if they were held for any length of time with the landscaping and et cetera. But as you have a tiered approach to the policy now, what if we amended the policy to have some type of a tiered approach to the cost of a quiet action title? Anybody who's buying it or putting in a bid for a parcel up front would know, for example, that it would be a minimum of at least 50% of the quiet action expense, quiet action title expense, as a minimum to be reimbursed back to. So they would know that additional cost, we'd be recouping costs, or at least some costs, from the expense of the quiet action titles without potentially losing our marketability on the policy that we have now and incurring more expenses down the road from having to hold on to these properties. So, just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think there's general agreement that the 500's too low. We're not quite sure where to put it above that, but
Yeah, I mean, to Mr. Anderson's point, that's not a bad point. I was going to say, my suggestion would be 1,500 to start there. It covers at least almost 50%, or if we did 1,750 to cover roughly 50%. But start there, see if the effects change. Certainly we could go 6 months, see, Kyle knows when he sends out the side lot letters, we can kind of gauge, did we get less responses on those vacant parcels than we did in 2025? And go from there, and if there wasn't much of a change, then we let it go for a little bit, and then we revisit it as we continue to improve our processes, and things get fat, Gene's work, he's getting there, maybe his hours will go down,
He's not getting any smarter, I don't think.
So the only eligible people for these side lots are the neighbor to the left or to the right?
Or directly behind it.
Okay.
Now, the ones that would be coming up where you'd be sending a letter like that would not be the ones we're just buying now. These would be, as he completes the quiet title actions, we're developing a list, or?
So anything he's working quiet title right now already has a sales agreement.
Okay.
So we're not going to proceed with quiet title right now unless we have a viable sale option. So let's say right now I think we got 2 or 3 properties that are ready for demolition. Kyle will send out the side lot letters. If we have an interested person who would like to purchase that lot, then we will say, hey, Gene, can you start quiet title action on this property? So as it's getting demolished, they start their quiet title action. Now the property's demolished, the site's been restored. Now we can go to sale with that property.
So you have 2 or 3 that would be in this category in the next few months?
I believe so, yes.
I don't have a problem with going to 1,500 and just see what happens. It's a small sample.
Chair, may I?
Yes.
Would it be possible to get the numbers and the data presented and then a policy? So instead of being anecdotal, just to this is the trend that we've seen over the past 6 months. This is the trend we've seen over the past year. Here's the number that we've now calculated, and then it's a solid. You've got it back, and now I think it's a little bit more transparent as well to the public. This is why we did it. This is how much we've lost. This is how much we'll gain. This is the number we have to recoup. Just so it's laid out. And
So all of the side lot sales.
just so when instead of being maybe 1,500, maybe 1,700, if it was data, and then you average
Well,
it, and then
the
you
data is that it's 2,500 to do the quiet title action, and that was just
32.
3205, and it varies on
3205.
property.
So
that was just developed recently, and since we require them to merge, now we understand we've got to clear the title to be fair to the buyer. So
I guess what I would hate to see is if you sit
the
down.
500 was established without that being
all this
considered as
data,
an expense.
and then you're we're going to do 1,500, and then you actually pull the numbers, and you're actually it should be closer to 4,000 because we've lost so much money, and this is where we're trending to raise it here, and then just in 2 months to come back and raise it again. But if you had a year of, or whenever this was implemented, then you'll see right off. This is what we're seeing.
So this is our 2025 data.
Okay.
So this is what it's actually cost us in 2025 for quiet titles of lot sales.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
I guess any other data would be, there's a lot. And so there's I don't know how granular we want to get with data, because certainly we could factor in a admin burden per property, demolition, there's legal fees, there's acquisition costs on tax sale. We don't even factor in, most of these side lots were acquired at the tax sale for $1,188. So we're already negative just right there off of that. So there's so much, and it's kind of, I've had that conversation many times over the years with individuals. It's they're well, but I bought this lot for $500, and it's yes, but we have roughly $12,000 into that property. It did not get to that vacant lot for free. So because we fight that every time. We sell it for $500. Gene calls them and tells them they need to bring $2,200 to closing, and they call us saying, why do I have to pay $2,200? So there's always that given, so again, to your point, I don't want to say, but we can go so far into how much the land bank has already absorbed just to get to the point of sale. There's so much data there. I'm glad to pull it all up, but I just, it's there, and it's extensive.
The 20.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So if we would, I think could potentially alleviate all of that and get us to a fair equity on it is not throwing out a number, but a percentage. And if we talk about a minimum of 50%, doesn't matter whether it's $3,000 or $4,000 or $3,500, it's 50% of whatever that cost is. And you have the data, as you've shared with us, of what the costs have been, either individually or on average collectively. So you know it's around $3,200, $3,500. So if we said 50%, then we would be in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $1,700, which would recoup some of the cost, but not all of the cost.
And
still
not
keep it fair.
including demolition expense.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't think we should.
And I will say, we've put a hold on any sales until January. Certainly, we have one more board meeting this year. If, to Tyler's point, I'll pull any data that you want. I mean, it's there, we can pull it together. Whatever we can entertain this next month and give it some time to absorb. We can think about it. I can pull, again, all that data that the board wants to see. And, I work with Gene, we can get all the legal costs associated with some, certain segment of properties and make a decision in December, so we can roll it out January 1st and start accepting proposals again. So I don't want to pressure the board. I want to give the board time to make a decision so that we can, do something we don't have to change in 6 months, and give as much information as possible. So, certainly I'm not looking for a decision today, and I'll provide any data you want.
The $2,200 in closing costs, what does that incur? Why are they so high?
That would, the certificate of title, the deed preparation from the land bank, and then the deed preparation of the combination deed and the recording fees. And I certainly can break those down as well, so for the board to see.
So basically, all the costs are on the buyer.
That's correct.
Okay.
The land bank gets the 500.
And that's
All
it.
the costs are on the buyer.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think if there's no rush to vote on this, and I think it makes sense to have if we roll this out the first of the year, why don't we wait until the next meeting to make a decision, gather some more information? And
Have Mr.
as
Snipper
suggested.
submit a proposal at that time for us to consider, and we can, is that, everybody in agreement on that?
I
think
do.
everybody wants the number to go up, it's just where we get to.
I have one comment. So I appreciate the percentage-wise as far as being fair and equitable. However, if we are waiting for somebody to make a proposal that we then get accepted, and before we have Gene start doing the quiet title action work, we aren't going to know what 50% is until he gets really deep into that process. So then they're just blindly.
Well, we've got an average of 3,200 on that we can.
Correct, but if, to Mr. Anderson's point where he wanted a percentage instead of a set dollar amount to be a little more
I think we have to
fair.
come to just a fixed number. I mean,
Correct.
it's something we can change after 3 months if there's no activity, but I think we want to go from 500 to 1,500 or 2,000 or 3,000 and see what happens.
Okay. Was the 1,500 though in addition to the 500? Is that what we're thinking, or?
No, I was just thinking 1,500.
Oh, okay.
Again, there's a lot, we don't know how it's going to, to Dana's point, we have seen it. I think, like Tyler said, let me pull a lot of those files. I'll work with, the team and we'll pull all that information because we can go through and we can see those proposals and see how many times a side lot person escalated it up. What did they escalate it to? We have that all. We can pull it. I mean, and so.
And you'll see your sweet spot.
Yeah, we can
Right.
see it, because you're right. We might see that on 80% of these properties, somebody escalated it to $5,000. So there was 80% of the time, somebody was willing to pay $5,000 for a side lot. We'll gather that and we'll present it to the board.
Thank you. I think the next item here is the judicial tax sale option agreement update.
Yeah, so the only update I had was we lost one property. The price went up to $2,000, as I had mentioned, so $2,188 will be our minimum per property, and the sale has been delayed till January 13th through 14th.
And
So,
why has the sale been delayed?
notice.
Oh, okay.
There was some issue with
That damn
notice.
notice, one more time.
Not that it really
Can't fix
matters.
that one.
We always find something else anyways.
And then item 4 under E is Erie Land Bank tax abatement.
Yep, so our standard tax abatement request to work through getting some of these properties to closing is the request to exonerate by resolution county and city taxes on 933 East 5th Street, 1123 East 11th Street, and 2656 Cochrane. Upon passing of a resolution by the Land Bank, this will be forwarded off to the Erie School District for their request to exonerate the taxes from the same 3 properties.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Do we have other business?
That's all the business I have today.
I have a little other business. I'm working on a report here. I'm trying to figure out the deposits our banks have here in the city, and then I want to go down to the courthouse and match it up to loans. And I'm just going to throw out 2 of them right now to show a contrast. The flagship bank, which is the Clarion Bank south of here, has an office out on West 8th Street. They have 20 million in deposits in Erie. And of course, that's whoever goes into that branch. Some of the people would be from Mill Creek. They've loaned me $3 million to rehab properties in the city. So they've done their share as far as they're active. Our biggest depositor for banks is PNC Bank. They've got $1.4 billion. I haven't dealt with them in 25 years, but I don't think they're very active in our real estate market locally. And this is what I'm going to go down to the courthouse and look and see who is redlining the city. And we want to find out who is doing that, and then we want to try to get some help from those lenders that may not have loaned money into the city to help us redevelop these vacant lots we have in the city. There's a lot of vacant lots in the city we don't own that are in more desirable areas than many that we have as the land bank. And I want to go to these lenders and get some money from them to give us some lower rates to encourage development within the city. And if somebody isn't loaning money in the city and has $1 billion of deposits in the city, I would hope they'd want to step forward and allow us to have an experiment of some sort, trying to get funding to increase construction in the city. So I'll be researching this in my spare time.
I would look into UWM as well, United Wholesale Mortgage. They're not,
I've not heard of them. What do they do?
so they offer like DSCR loans, things of that nature
But do they
for
get
investors.
Do they get deposits here in town? They're not a bank.
They are a bank, but they're not here.
Okay.
A lot of my investors use them.
Oh, I'll have to talk to you about that. I'm not familiar with it.
Mr. President, or Chair, I'm not sure what.
I'm very important,
If you want, yes.
except I lost my lofty perch, so I did something wrong last month.
Just to come back to a topic that's been tabled now for the past couple months, and I think it may have actually started back in July, the property that was brought up with a proposal from Erie Black Wall Street. Has there been any movement? I know that they were waiting for something from the county to potentially be submitted. I've not seen any submissions come through. I feel like this organization is waiting for some type of answer or movement or decision to come through with the land bank with a proposal. Just curiosity of where that stands.
Well, I'll start here because I was here at the meeting. I think we were in agreement that we didn't want a community garden there. If they wanted to buy it for some other purpose, I don't think there was any opposition to them purchasing it. It's just we didn't want the community garden. Paul Gamble's kind of taken the lead on that, and he's not here today. But that's my understanding where it is, and we haven't heard back from them, to my understanding. Or have you heard anything further from them, or?
I think Paul Gamble was going to have a meeting with his neighborhood watch, and he was going to invite Erie's Black Wall Street to that, and then he was going to come back and report to us. So.
They did attend the neighborhood watch meeting in October. Okay. After that meeting, they presented their plan. There's been a lot of back and forth regarding that meeting. I'm not quite sure on what came out of that. However, I've answered some questions from Dr. Matthews regarding that. They are also, though, purchasing 4 parcels from the Redevelopment Authority in that same footprint because, frankly, I don't want to mow them anymore. And if somebody else wants to steward them and take care of, like I said, the mowing, the dumping, everything else that goes on with them, the land bank owns 1 lot and nobody else is jumping down to buy it. So, certainly, I know the neighborhood organization doesn't want a community garden, and I know we've had bad experiences with community gardens in the past. I think we have done a good job as the land bank stewarding those and trying to look at that. We did have a successful community garden over on June Street with East Side Grassroots Coalition, and that's working out very well. So certainly transferring for a community garden, like I said, when the proposal was in front of the board before, I think we have to look at who is proposing the community garden as opposed to not saying no to community gardens altogether. So, and I think it's more than a community garden. I don't believe it's straight community garden as much as it is a community center and something for their organization to build off of.
Yes, so like I said at the last meeting, I'm fully confident that they would have a successful community garden there, but if for whatever reason it was not successful, I'm fully confident that they would still be able to pivot and make it something else, so.
I guess I just caution. I'm the liaison, but I worry that this is the land bank, and I know we need to talk to the neighborhood groups, but that we're not making decisions based on a neighborhood group, but for what is also, because the land bank is still essentially responsible and eating all the costs associated with this property if it's not being developed. So it's not just one neighborhood that's being impacted. It's the entire city that's being impacted by an undeveloped space. And so if you have an organization that's been waiting roughly 5 months on a proposal with no other proposals coming in, I think it's hurting the entire city and not just one area.
And I have another question as well. How many people actually ride by that area? I definitely feel like you're riding up and down Parade Street, nobody's really looking over there. Like, how much of an eyesore would it actually be to the people of the neighborhood when clearly you have, the jail and the yard, and then I don't know what that building is there on actual 16th Street?
Yeah, so I can't answer the data as far as how many people drive down that street, but I will say, certainly our failed community garden was at 22nd and German in the center, right in the heart of Center City neighborhood group and right by the residents who don't want a community garden. It wasn't over on East 16th Street, which to your point is a highly distressed area. We've torn down more properties in that block in the last 3 years than probably any other block in the city of Erie. And, it's just a lot of disinvestment. There's, I think, maybe 3 owners left.
Yeah, I sold one of the properties a couple months ago. I think there's 3 houses on the whole entire.
Yeah, and I think there's a garage on the corner and a storage building on the 17th Street corner, and that's essentially it with an alleyway running down the middle.
Right.
So, I mean, it's.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I came on this board kind of in the middle of this whole situation, and I had tabled the item at the agenda from the last meeting because it appeared at that point that it was going to fail without having any support or not enough support. And I didn't want to see that happen, particularly with the fact that there's other lots that they're going to be acquiring. And it seems to me that they had a larger vision or a larger purpose of what they wanted to do. And my understanding when we said to have them come in as a public hearing, that they were going to come in to us, not to any other groups, but they were going to come back in and give us a presentation so then we could then move forward to take a vote. I think we're all aware that whatever the confusion was as to whether there was or wasn't another proposal coming in, there was never a proposal that actually came in, and the likelihood that that proposal is going to come in now is 0. So there is no other proposal that's going to come forward.
Yeah.
And so, at that point, I think I was looking for clarity and thinking that what was happening, that without that clarity and with the confusion, that it was going to fail for lack of perceived transparency on both sides to understand exactly what was going on. So my feeling, I guess, or understanding was in tabling that was that they were going to come in and give us a presentation, not any other group or any. So, to the point of the liaison, I mean, we don't want to shirk our responsibility by having them present to another group and not us, if we're the ones that are voting on it.
Well, it's still on the table, right?
Yeah, so we have it on the table.
Mr. Gamble would have been at the meeting, I assume, and.
He was at the community meeting.
He was, and I haven't, we need to hear what.
Yeah, and if the issue is just the community garden, and they're buying it for their lot, maybe they just mow it.
Right, we
Don't have a community garden, just keep mowing it until.
I don't think there's any objection to selling it to them for a general use.
I can reach out to them and have them prepare a presentation for December,
Yes.
if that's what the board wishes.
Yeah, I mean, it was my perception incorrect in what
No, I don't
we're
think
trying
so.
to achieve there? Or-
There was some issue with the neighborhood and that's where the lot is, so it's important to hear from the people in the neighborhood. And they did have this meeting, I just don't know what the result was. Paul would have been at that meeting.
I think the request, and this is what was stated when she attended, or Dr. Matthews had attended in September, for a clear expectation of what information she needs to bring. So to say a presentation, like what does that mean? But if that was the argument that we had heard the past couple times, like what else do you want from me, and I'll present it. But I just need to know a clear expectation of what is being asked to be presented. So when we relay that request, I would just be clear on what is
The objection was to the garden. It wasn't to, they already own property. They own some commercial property there on Parade Street. So they're committed to that neighborhood, which is important. And the objection was the community garden use.
Do you want
That could be
their 3-year
impractical.
plan, their 5-year plan,
No,
their community plan?
We could just sell it to them, just for.
So now I'm confused. Do you want them to present, or do we move?
I think a
The objection
presentation.
was the community garden. It wasn't that they would own it.
I mean, I think the objection, it seems to me, and again, I haven't been here with all the arguments, but it seems to me that it's clear that the objection is having a community garden, no matter who the organization is. So if they just come and say, we're getting the other 4 lots and we're going to mow 5 lots, I don't think there's an objection. That's the general perception I get.
Right.
So I think they just need to come and clarify that. Do they still plan on having a community garden if they know that's an objection to the neighbors and it's holding up what this board is doing? Or are they just going to mow all 5 lots because they have a bigger vision that's happening there? I mean, I think that's what needs to be cleared up.
At that point, would we ask for a new proposal?
I mean, I guess if the proposal is just they're going to cut the lawn, they're going to cut the grass, or
They're just going to buy it.
Aaron, are they using the other lots that the redevelopment authority is selling for a community garden as well?
I think for their community plan and mission is what they put on their proposal. I'd have to pull the proposals and see.
isn't there another potential lot of a building that's going to be demolished that they may potentially be just to the,
I think there's one more blighted
Adjacent to the
structure
either,
in
yeah.
that block. I don't believe it's adjacent to those. However, a lot of stuff has changed. We now have a memorandum to maintain that gets filed on the properties. So on the redevelopment authority side, we don't have an issue transferring for something such as a community garden because we do hold that memorandum in the event that they become an eyesore, we can get them back. As opposed to we did 3 years ago when we had no enforcement. Essentially, they could say they were going to turn it into a lawn and we could sell it and they could turn it into a garden. There was nothing we could do about it. So
well, should the land bank change their policy then to be?
land bank policy mimics the redevelopment authority policy when it comes to, but we also don't, I shouldn't say that. we won't convey a vacant parcel now as the land bank without a development proposal, which includes the $150 a month fee. So nobody can acquire a vacant parcel from the land bank without a plan to develop that parcel. We're not selling for land holding, we're not selling for somebody who just thinks that in 5 years, maybe they'll build a house. We want them to provide a development plan.
Right, and I think that's what they've probably been trying to do
Yes.
with the community garden, which obviously there's an objection to community gardens. So I think they probably need to know that the policy is that they bring us a plan, but there's an objection to having a community garden.
Right, and I can talk to them, but the plan that they presented to me was far greater than just a community garden. It was centered around a garden, but also was far more as far as community engagement and youth development and learning and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's far greater than just community garden. And so I don't want the board to get focused on community garden, and I think I'll talk to them and have them come with that full overall plan of what they envision for that entire 2-block area there in that Parade Street corridor. Which
And that's where these 3 lots are that you are selling to them?
they're in the 400 block of 16th Street and the 1600 block of Parade Street.
Okay. So, yeah,
So,
directly in the same area.
yeah, that we've held for, I mean, I think the one lot, 7 years. The other one just recently got demolished, but,
Yeah, there's a bunch
the
of
other
trees.
ones, I think, 4
huge
years.
trees.
So they're just all, yeah.
And so I wasn't here to know whether they gave the full presentation to the land bank board, as you've seen, but maybe that's all they need to do.
Yeah, I was not here in September, so I'm unaware as
Yeah,
well.
but maybe that's all they need to do.
I don't know.
No, they didn't give a presentation, but it isn't, I mean, again, we've set a precedent where nobody else has had to do anything so formal. They had their written proposal with the beautiful photos and renditions and all of that, with essentially a well-thought-out plan that we've never asked somebody to, come in and formally present with slideshow and what they're doing with all their other lots that don't really concern what the one particular parcel is that we're discussing, so.
I would say the only reason that we're asking for the presentation is because how much conflict this has been to get it to be agreed upon. I think the first time we voted, it was a split decision, 2-2. We tabled it, and we still have not made any progress on it, so.
And I do think it just as a cautionary tale, that I would, to your point right there, I think that this is Erie Black Wall Street, and I've not seen any other property discussed at this length, and I think that I would just be cautious in making sure that there's an equitable way that we are asking for people to propose what is expected of a proposal, and then if we need follow-up clarity on that, because I just think this is treading very lightly and openly around one group being asked to do something above and beyond anybody else's proposals.
So a question that I have is, who made the decision that we are no longer doing community gardens? Was that?
That was several years ago, and it came to the point that, and mind you, this was far before a lot of the policies and revisions to a lot of our documents was. It came to the point that everyone felt in order to buy a lot, they wrote community garden on it. And it just was, we started to see every vacant lot proposal had community garden, community garden, community garden. And we did sell, I mean, there's vacant lots that the land bank conveyed that right now, if I drove by them, they're probably overgrown and there's no garden there. But we were young, we were early on, and we didn't quite have everything well vetted that we have now. So we just kind of, but also we
Is it like a policy though,
no,
somewhere?
it is no policy.
Okay.
There is no written policy, it is not in our policies and procedures. It was never made as a memorandum or a resolution to that regard. And there are, like I said, successful community gardens all across the city of Erie. I mean, I think, again, Center City was the center for a couple failed community gardens, and one not even being a community garden. It was a private individual who was going to grow an urban garden that just didn't work out. And so, but they were the hub of that, and so they just have a bit of sourness in them as far as community gardens or gardens in general. So, but yeah, there is no policy on the land bank saying we won't sell for somebody that wants to do a community garden. I think it's always been left up to the board to make that decision, and what they feel is in the best interest of that lot and the neighborhood that it sits in.
Well, I think that, at least since I joined the board, there's been a general consensus that community gardens are not in vogue, to be viewed in vogue. So I think that's been a confusing issue with this situation. And, before I actually took my seat, the confusion as to whether there was going to be another proposal that was supposed to be coming in or was in or was on its way in or whatever, I think we know now it's not coming in. So there is no competing proposal. So, I mean, I think we cleared the decks with that on when we tabled it the last time to then bring it back and, finalize what was happening. So I just think if they're interested, the easiest way would be to come back in and say, we still want the property and we're interested and we'd like to see it voted on.
And they could use the plan they submitted to you to buy the 3 lots.
Yeah, they could just say,
I mean, that's a
we're getting
development.
3 lots from the redevelopment authority, we want your
That's a
lot.
development since.
Yeah, I didn't ask for a plan.
Okay.
I just want somebody to do something with them.
But, they've increased their
I don't want
investment
them
in the
anymore.
area, so we should be consistent with what redevelopment did.
So after this gets tabled, it doesn't get pushed to the next meeting?
It's on-
How does
on
it-
the
how does
table.
it-
It's on the
It's
table. The
the
board at
table
any
until it
time
gets-
can make a
yeah.
motion to pull it off the table and take action on it. Actually, after this meeting, it has to be placed back on the agenda. It's only allowed to be tabled for 1 month.
So are we able to get that done today, or?
If somebody wanted to motion to remove it from the table to take action on it, the board has that right.
I would think that because I think at was it October meeting?
Yes.
Where Paul was going to have Erie's Black Wall Street come and do their presentation, that we would wait until Paul Gamble came back, to be fair with him, so that he could report on exactly how that meeting went with the neighbors.
Yeah, I think it's something we can resolve at the next meeting.
So it's on the table, and it would automatically be on the agenda next month?
No,
Unless we know.
something can only reside on the table for 1 month prior, or 1 month post after it was placed on the table. Other than that, it has to be placed on the agenda as a new item.
So we would need a motion to extend the table till?
No, the board would just have to request that it be placed back on the agenda for next month. Or I can just place it on the agenda because it's an actionable item.
So
Yeah, it
essentially,
would just be.
Yeah.
It
would just come back
dies
on-
if it
yeah,
doesn't get pulled from the
right.
table today, and it has to be reintroduced.
And maybe it's better if that have just clear the decks, bring it back, and make it clean and vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
I don't think we need a motion.
No.
It's just
Okay.
it dies without us doing anything.
so for clarification, you will reach out directly to the organization for a preparation of presentation?
Yeah. Anything else? We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.